Welcome to today's podcast. And in today's podcast, we're going to be covering the final step in the 5 steps to going 10x process that will help you create an inflection point, a shift, a real movement towards a place where you're creating immense results in your work and in your life. And this is perhaps the glue that holds the other 4 steps together. Today's podcast is on support. And how support is probably the thing that is going to help you not just get results, but keep getting results. We talked in the previous podcast about implementation, about taking action. And in the podcast, I shared how most people get to the point where they're taking a little bit of action, but they don't make it consistent. And that's the most important part of implementation. It's like continually taking action to the point where you're getting better at taking action. Well, support is the thing that makes it happen over time. And actually, I really got into, in my 20s, I was reading about happiness. Actually, this is one of my juvenile beliefs, actually, that if I read enough about happiness, that I would transcend struggle and uncertainty and worry, which was quite funny. But what in reading about happiness, what I actually found is about performance. Obviously, a lot of the research into happiness talks a lot about performance. And here's why. Performance, flourishing, actualizing your potential is happiness. So it was Sean Achor, one of my favorite authors, who said, happiness is the joy that we feel striving towards our potential. And so therefore, happiness is healthy striving. And actually his book, The Happiness Advantage, I really, really love that book. And here's why. It talks so much about social investment. And I was a guy at the time, I believed in the value of a tribe. I still do. I sound like it. I don't believe that anymore. But I absolutely believe in the value of having a tribe. And I was selling fitness at the time, and I was selling this idea that you can't get fit long term on your own, in a vacuum, on your own. It's boring. It's not as competitive. It's not as fun. And I sold people this idea that if they came to a gym every single morning, which was fun, which had loud music, which had high energy, that had great people all pushing themselves forward. At the end of the session, I would do a 5-minute self-development talk. It was really, really great, nourishing environment, that this would create the environment which would help them transform long-term. And it did. We saw people absolutely flourish. They absolutely got through the hardest things in their lives: divorce, business breakdown, death of family members. They didn't die because, we were pretty safe. But there was all these things that they got through because they had a deep support network of people around them who every single day when things were hard, they would say, hey, come on, let's get a good workout done. And I just saw it in real time. I loved that part of my life because I saw the value of community at its absolute best. That community is still going now. It's a really, really great gym in North Wales. And you could see people investing in one another and pushing each other through a hard workout, in the acute phase, a hard string of workouts during a training program, but helping someone through a hard process in their life, which is body transformation. Body transformation is difficult, and having someone there to support you through it meant that so many of these people created momentum, which we've talked about in previous podcasts. So going back to what Sean Achor said, I love his work, by the way. He's very happy, very, great speaker about happiness and positivity and flourishing in the workplace. All of his books are great. Big Potential, After Happiness, I think another one is called. And he made this statement in the book: is social investment is one of the biggest predictors of the long-term success of students at Harvard. Now, that for me was quite profound. I was like, I thought it'd be an academic ability. But he makes this point in the book that when people go to Harvard is the number 1 university in the world. When they go there, they come from places where they are in the 1% of the 1%. They're the smartest student in their class, maybe in their school, maybe in their town. And then all of a sudden they're coming to perhaps a place, course, a division where they're surrounded by all of the other 1%ers. So they're no longer special. And then they're given some of the hardest and most challenging assignments to deal with. And there's major change. They've gone from being special to not special. They've moved away from home. They're challenged to their absolute limits because that's what they're at that university for. And then they look at what's the predictor of the people that survive that and thrive versus the people that don't thrive. And they looked at all of the measures, and the number one predictor was those who pushed towards their social support network during hard times. The second thing is those who had a deep and wide social support network. So what that meant, it's not just having one person they could call on, it was having one person they could call on and a load of others, but that were deep. So it's the difference between having what I would say like a load of Facebook friends that you don't know at all to having 5 really, really good friends who you could spare your soul to. And I think that's what the difference is in this day and age, is that people believe that because they've got people on Facebook, they've got lots of friends, they've got connections. And this is what's being lost, is we forget we are made for deep connection with the people around us. And especially in entrepreneurship. So, I saw this as this idea of the solopreneur. And people use this term self-made. You're not self-made. There's been a community of people that have got you to where you are today. And people always seem to negate that when they are talking about how they got to their success. It saddens me a bit. And I'm a firm believer that the most successful people can build a tribe of people around them to support them, challenge them, raise them up, hold them accountable, all those things. And we're going to talk about that in today's podcast. When you look at this in terms of 10x, without the support system in place for you to go 10x and keep going 10x, it's going to be a struggle. And I'll talk about this from my past, where in the athletics community, and this is in elite athletics, you would see people on a track in the summertime and they would run times, their best PBs ever. But what you didn't see in the wintertime was them building base. They would build base and build base and build base in order to build a peak. And I was out running the other day and I was thinking about this, is that I looked over to my left and I was actually running through the desert, really, really beautiful, really quiet. And I could see the tallest building in the world standing in the distance, which is the Burj Khalifa. And I remember doing the tour, and you go up the Burj Khalifa and they talk about how the foundations were laid and all that. And the depth and actually the width of what they had to construct in order for the tower to go so high. And in elite sport, in construction and in business, there's 2 investments that we make. And sometimes we forget the base. We strive for the peak all the time. Like for those people in business who are flash in the pan successes, what often happens is they have immediate success. The market, they create an offer or a product that meets the market. It's high demand. They create enormous success, but sometimes they crumble under the pressure of the growth. And why is this? It's because they haven't got the appropriate support mechanisms in place to help them create that long-term success. And this is, for me, was really, really interesting. I work with Kristen Sargent's my coach currently, and she works with Hollywood stars and people that go into fame. And a lot of people who go into fame and have the same experience. They rise to fame very quickly and they don't know, or they don't have the psychological support structures to deal with that. That's why they get therapists, coaches, support networks and stuff like that. And so what is so important that we acknowledge when we're talking through this topic today is in order for you to go peak 10x, to create that peak in business, in your fitness, even if you're listening to this and you're thinking about your fitness, you have to build base. And here's why. For those athletes that didn't train in the off season or didn't do the strength work, but still had natural talent, they would perform well in competitions. I would go up against people regularly in my early 20s and my teens, and they would claim how they hadn't trained or they hadn't done stuff, and they would run really quickly. However, they would do one-off performances. They would never be able to string together performance after performance after performance because they were always working at such a high percentage of their max output. And when we look at this from a business perspective, is that the bigger we can build our base, when we do push ourselves and go towards our peak, we're working at a lower percentage of our maximal output, which means we're way more sustainable. So what we want to be thinking about is what is building base when it comes to personal and professional success? Well, it's support networks. So in this podcast, what we're going to do, we're going to go and look at the statements in the scorecard. And you may have done this and thought how, support, you may be even priding yourself on the fact that you are a self-made person, you don't need support, and you're doing really, really well without support. You're doing really well without a coach. You're doing really well without a mastermind. You're doing well without a support group. But I'm going to challenge you, and I believe to my bones that you are operating at 1/10 of your capacity or capability. This means that you can either be 10x in your revenue or your output, or you could be finding it 10 times easier. And I don't know which one it is for you, but I know that you probably want to choose one. So what we're going to do on the scorecard, so just if you've come this far in the 5 audio series, the 5 podcast audio series, you'll know that there's a scorecard that I've asked people to do alongside this series to really highlight which areas you are best investing your time, energy, and money in to create a shift in to help you go 10x. It's in the comment section or the podcast description. Go and take it. It takes 2 minutes and it will make going through this even more of a transformation for you. So, first one, I ask for help when I need it. Now, if there's any statement that really rings true for so many entrepreneurs, business owners, career people, is that they see asking for help as a sign of weakness. They believe that if they are to go and show a little bit of vulnerability, a little bit of imperfection, a bit of chaos, if they show something that's not working well, it's a sign that they haven't got their shit together. And I can't tell you how much of a struggle that is for so many people. They end up so bound up in their own head, in their own way, so much of the time because they have this narrative that if it is to be, then it's up to me. We've talked about it in previous podcast episodes. So what we want to do, we want to start recognizing that asking for help, being vulnerable, is a sign of strength. I pride myself on this. I'm very, very good at asking for help when I need it. I'm okay about saying when I'm lonely. I'm okay about saying when I need someone's kindness or compassion. Actually, I was thinking about a couple of weeks ago, Poppy and I had some conflict, heated conflict. And as I was driving to the restaurant to meet her, I remember messaging her and I just said, hey, listen, I need your support and compassion right now, not your criticism. And as soon as I got to the restaurant, she met me with exactly that. She gave me loads of support, loads of compassion. She apologized. I apologized. And it was so much more pragmatic than arguing. And I think that's such an important thing to be able to do, is ask for someone's help when you need it most. And it's a skill. It's a muscle. I think asking for help gets easier and easier as you do it more and more. You don't get to the point where you're what's called an ask-hole. An ask-hole is someone that constantly asks and never does anything with the information. You know, they're constantly asking things that they could probably type into Google. That's what I call an ask-hole. It's ask. But at the same time, it's about having the emotional intelligence to calibrate that. You know, sometimes you do actually need something that's really, really obvious. You ask a question, someone says, oh yeah, it's just this. And you're like, oh, okay, thank you so much. But generally, generally speaking, asking for help when you need it is so important. But I think what's really important as well is asking and knowing who to ask. So, for example, the who in a lot of the administrative questions like clients ask me is Google. You know, Google is a great place to go for an administrative question. However, who to ask for personal support, personal challenge, to give you some feedback about how you're showing up. They're different people. They could be a mentor, it could be a coach, it could be a trusted advisor, it could be a family member that who's built or got the life that you want. But asking the right people, because then, obviously I've sold consultant services, coaching, fitness, and it was always be at the end in the when someone would give me an objection to joining a program or to taking the next step, they'd go, I'm just going to go and ask my partner. Now, sometimes their partner is their trusted advisor. They make decisions as a team, and I respect that. Often what they would be asking, and this is often be ladies, would be going out to ask their partner to go and make a personal investment in themselves. And it was really sad because the partner didn't often know what kind of struggle they were going through with their weight, with their emotions, because they would come into the consult room, these people, and they would disclose how painful their sex life was, their relationship was, their confidence was, how they felt about their life. And they would tell me afterwards, I've never told anyone that. And then at the end of that same conversation, they'd be like, oh, I'm going to go and discuss this with my partner. And what was sad is that their partner didn't have any empathy about all of those things that they were feeling. So it was really sad. So that was the wrong who for that person. So the right kind of support is so important. And if you've asked anyone that's ever done a body transformation or had a coach or had support, they'll always say, yeah, go for it. I remember my first mentoring situation where I had finished university, I'd graduated, I was doing a master's and PGCE and all this stuff. I was working 9 to 5 and I was personal training on either side of it. I was super busy, and at the time my girlfriend had a granddad over in Dubai, a very wealthy chap, absolutely incredible thinker. And I was thinking about joining my first ever mastermind with a guy called Paul Moore. Paul's been a great mentor and coach for me. And I remember sitting in Dubai and filling out a form, and Fred came out and he said to me, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm thinking about joining this mastermind, but it's really expensive. And at the time, I didn't have much money. I'd spent all my money on probably partying at that point in my life. Either that or, invested in kit for my personal training business. And I said, yeah, I'm really thinking about doing this mentoring program. And he looked at me and he said, there's one thing I know about successful people, Ben, and is that they want you to be successful too. This guy, has he got the business that you want? And I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, I absolutely want to be like him and more. And he said, don't think about it, do it. He said, don't think about it because right now it doesn't seem logical for you to spend that much money on something that, you don't know what it's going to do for you. But trust me, it'll change your life. And that was the end of the conversation. And I didn't even hesitate to make the decision. I remember filling out the form, paying the money, gulping as the first payment as I filled out the form. That payment led to me being invited to a mastermind, which I left my safe job a month later. And that's when I started Fastway to Fitness. He was the right who to ask for when I needed that help. And it just so happened that I was in Dubai, I was around opulence and wealth, and I really, I was actually pretty broke at the time. I think actually my girlfriend at the time paid for me to fly out to Dubai. And it was just this real recalibration of what was possible, seeing of what was possible. We went to a place called Ras Al Khaimah where there was like a floodlit golf course, all the houses were huge, there was like a really nice golf resort, and it really changed my thinking. So the who is so important. And sometimes you get this, and this is something that you might do as a man or a woman. You come through the door at the end of the day and you ask your partner, or you're venting or bitching off or moaning or whining about something strategic at work, and you're expecting your partner to solve your problems or give you advice. And sometimes it's the worst possible advice they can give because they're just looking out for you. And this is not me saying that you shouldn't have a good or an ability to have a strategic conversation with your partner, but they're not always your who. And they also sometimes will err on the side of caution because they don't want to see you getting hurt, especially if you're someone who's constantly saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to this is going to be my big time, I'm going to do it, and then you back out last minute. They'd rather see you not go for it and be safe than go for it and waste money, time, energy, or get hurt. So you've got to remember that the who you ask for in this instance is super important. Then I've got another one as well, is that I ask for help when I need it, because this is what I notice in clients as well. One of their responses to obstacles, and you might have gone through the obstacles podcast, is one of your obstacle responses could be burying your head. So you get a problem, you are overwhelmed, and instead of reaching out and pestering someone that you think that would help you or support you, you just bury your head. And that could be your default response to the problems in your life, that you don't ask for help, you bury your head, the problems grow. And I love that saying that problems feed on fear. Problems feed on fear, or fear feeds on time. So problems are fed by fear, and fear is fed by time. So not only have I buried my head, I'm buried my head and I'm in fear, so my problems and my fear grows. So here's how I've overcome this in the past. I always have someone I can go to for coaching. I always have a coach because I profess how great and transformational coaching is. And every time I found myself as a coach without a coach, I found myself out of integrity. I'm there professing and sharing how coaching will transform your life, and it'll make you see things differently, it will create momentum, it'll help you change your relationships. And in the moments between coaches where I've been in a transitional period, if I leave that too long, I feel way out of integrity. So having a coach in those moments, and a coaching agreement can be someone you pay weekly, monthly, by session, by the year. It could be a long-term agreement. It can be an old boss that you've got. That you don't have to go and enroll in a program. You can actually have a confident, like one of the best guys that I talk to is a guy called Chris. Chris is one of my old clients. I've coached him personally. So, I've coached him. He's coached me lots of times. Like, he sees things in my business and my life and given me so much wisdom and guidance. There's an informal coaching relationship there. Or you can have a very formal one, which has got an agreement that you set an agreement on how you're going to show up. But having someone that you can go a mile deep with is so important. And I think I want to just distinguish between going a mile deep with someone who's a coach and going a mile deep with a therapist. A therapist helps you reframe the past. A coach helps you create the future. That's how it's very, very oversimplified, but that's how I see it. The second statement on the scorecard is I have someone to challenge my thinking on a weekly basis. Now, this is why it's so important. There's a book by the Arbingder Institute called Leadership and Self-Deception. And this is why you're smart. If you're a leader, if you're managing a company, you've done great things in your life, you're smart. You're smart, you're really clever, you're probably emotionally intelligent, you're probably academically intelligent, and you're quite savvy. You're so smart, you can convince yourself of anything. You deceive yourself with your own thinking, with your own smart thinking, and having somebody's perspective on how you're showing up, how you are thinking, showing you your blind spots is so essential. And the way I talk about this is like, I can't see my form when I'm squatting, whereas someone else can. And it's exactly the same when I'm demonstrating leadership technique, sales technique, whether it's relationship technique, is someone making an observation and giving me feedback is going to be really, really, really helpful. Now, coaching didn't actually come from the world of therapy. Coaching actually came from the world of sport. And my background was sports coaching and being a coach and a strength and conditioning coach for sports people and individuals. And so when you commit it like that, you're just looking at someone, you're observing their life, their form, their technique, maybe the principles they're using, and you're saying what you see. This challenges your thinking. And what this does on a weekly basis is allows you to stop getting in your own way. And the biggest thing I've taken away from that is someone challenging my thinking in moments where I've said, it's a lead issue. It's a me issue. I remember getting on a call with a coach of mine. I said, I've got leads. I've got a cash flow issue. And he said, Ben, there's no such thing as a cash flow issue. And I was like, okay, well, that's how it feels. And he said that you've got an offer issue. You're either not making enough offers, your offers aren't being accepted, you're not frequently offering the same thing often enough, or you're not repeating that cycle, or your offers aren't big enough. And I was like, oh, all of those. And he goes, fix all those 4 things and there won't be a cash flow issue. He said cash flow is a symptom of not enough sales. And I was like, yeah, I get that. And having someone who's very, very well versed in psychology to challenge your mindset is like having a trainer in the gym to add weight to the bar. They know when to spot you and support you, but they also know when to throw in the hand grenade and make you work hard. And having someone challenging your thinking and showing you models and methods and ways of thinking is perhaps the best support you can have. I'm so sold on coaching, by the way. So if I sound evangelic about this, I come from a place where coaching has changed me as a person. I grew up in a very reactive household. I grew up with not a lot of money and very small thinking, like I thought in terms of my county and my local area. And coaching has helped me drastically see myself, my life, the way I see my life differently. And I really, really have transformed as a person because of that. And I've seen the same thing in clients. Yesterday I was on a call with my client and she's gone from one company to the next. She is the CEO she's the chief, oh my gosh, can't remember what. She's in the top of the company now. Yeah, she's really, really, she's gone from a company that didn't really support her, and now she's in a company that's supporting her and she's flourishing. And watching that has been absolutely magical. And one of the things that's really shifted in her is the ability to challenge her own thinking on a weekly basis. So think about, have you got someone to do that? The next one is I quickly turn feedback into action, so obviously feedback from the right places. And I remember having a customer service coach. Her name was Teresa. She was amazing. So I thought I had the best service in the world. I thought Fast Way to Fitness was incredible. It was the best thing in the world. There was nothing wrong with it. It was all the clients' problems if they had a problem with the service. Yes, a very juvenile way to think about things. I remember her saying, Ben, by the way, when people leave fast, they don't just leave, they hate you. And it's because the way that you make them feel on the way out. And I remember thinking about this and I was like, yeah, I agree with that. I can see where I go up to people in the local area and if they've been at my gym and they've left because they had such a great experience when they were there, they had to leave for some reason and I wasn't nice to them or kind to them or compassionate to them. And I could see that. And then she once had to hold my hands and look into my eyes. She said, Ben, and she was like, shut the fuck up, shut up, just listen to me. And I was like, no, it's this person and this is the way they think and it's their issue. And she said, Ben, look at me. And she had to physically shut me up. And she gave me feedback about what she saw. And I had to, as uncomfortable as that was, it really shifted the way I saw my business. And I quickly moved that feedback into action. I changed the way we did things in the business and it was way, way, way better for the clients. And we had much, much better feedback. People enjoyed it more. And that's really important to be able to do that. It's to push aside your ego, the way that you think that things are perfect, you're doing everything right, you can't be any better, and have someone saying, listen, shut the fuck up. Shut up. You're not. That's not true. And you to be able to say, do you know what, you're right. I'm doing this in a way that could damage my business, or I'm not doing it in the way that's best. And being able to change your attitude and implement something that will shift your business. And obviously this is not everything everyone ever says to you is great feedback, but it's being able to cast aside your ego and quickly turn feedback into action. So 10x is an iterative process. And this is why this is important, because for you, in order for you to go 10x, things like, say, for example, you're a coach and or a trainer, a fitness trainer, and you want to go from doing 35, 40 hours of personal training per week to doing 3 to 4 in a group program. Your offer, which gets people to do that, maybe at a similar price, or so you earn 10x more, has to be really, really effective. And that's an iterative process. So you're going to have feedback, and the ability to get that feedback and not see negative feedback, drops in sales, no one signing up as a negative thing, is just feedback. So many people I've worked with, part of the big shift that they have is starting to see even feedback they don't want, like lack of sales or lack of response to a message. That's feedback. And that feedback can be turned into action. Well, actually, hang on a second, I'm sending this message out to people and they're ghosting me, or they're not listening to me, or they're not even responding. That's feedback. And if you can respond to that in a way where you don't get defensive, you don't pull back, you don't say I'm broken, you don't say no one wants to buy from me, and you can turn that into more action, you are far more likely to succeed. So another thing that's really important in this one is something called event action. It's the ability to quickly move from an insight into action. We talked on the last podcast about this idea of information, insight, action, transformation. Well, the speed at which you take action after an event is directly proportional to the likelihood that you'll take that action. So what this means is, if you have a big insight, even if you're listening to this podcast and something clicks in your mind, you might need to stop what you're listening to right now and go and do it right now. If you're listening in your car, if you're watching this on YouTube and something magical has just gone ding, oh my gosh, I need to go and do that, go and do it. Here's why. The longer you leave that after the insight, the less likely it is that you'll do it. And I remember I went to an event held by MyZone. And this is one of the best CEOs I've ever witnessed, a guy called Dave Wright. Really got a really great CEO. He just oozed charisma, positivity. I really loved how he showed up. And I remember watching him, and someone gave him some feedback in the middle of the seminar about what MyZone is, and there's 30, maybe 40 people in the room. On the spot, he solved that. He sent in, he goes, hey team, what that person said is really important. I'm just going to send an email. And he stopped and he sent it in the middle of the seminar. It took 10 seconds. And I was like, wow, that's action taking. And I just said to him, I was like, oh, that's really inspired me what you did. He goes, oh, by the way, I've done that for years. That's so important. It's like actioning things immediately is part of our company culture. And yeah, I got that. That was really, really helpful. And even in the space of coaching, sometimes we'll have clients will say, oh yeah, I'm going to reach out to 5 people. I was like, well, let's do it now. I'll help you. I'll reach out to some people for you as well. And we'll do it on the call. And that's what we do in the mastermind as well, by the way. So when we do things like theory, when we think about things like big goals, we then go and take action straight away, because that's feedback, right? The feedback is I need to shift the way I'm showing up, what I'm doing, the actions I'm taking, and then we quickly move into an action which cements that thinking, because we quickly move into momentum then. Next one on the scorecard is my group of peers inspire me to do bigger things. Now, you want to be part of a peer group that is in forward momentum. Part of your environment is seeing what others are doing and modeling them. So like I was talking about when I came to Dubai, when I was 21, I was modeling a lot of how my girlfriend at the time's granddad was behaving, how he was thinking. He came down one morning and he said to me, how much money did you make last night, Ben? And I was like, none. And he went, oh, this is how much I made. And he showed me a figure. And I was like, wow, that was amazing, because he'd invested in the stock market. He just showed me about how the stock market works and it's really valuable. And I was like, right, okay, I get it. So being part of a family or a group of friends or a group of peers that are thinking bigger about their lives, it's not so much that they might be money obsessed or fitness obsessed or family or relationships obsessed. They've just got bigger visions of what they want for their lives. And whatever your value is, be around those kind of people, because what they will do is they will challenge your way of thinking. Yeah? Because the peer group might not just be about making money. But if you want to be a great parent, go and hang around with great parents, because you'll learn so much. And this is something that I learned was about being sometimes the dumbest person in the room, but the right room. If I was to go into a room with Elon Musk and listen to him, I would probably get a lot of value with him talking about maybe electronics or robotics or space travel, physics. But it'd be the wrong room for me, because I probably 99.9% of that would probably go over my head. And I actually once joined a mastermind, and I think it was way, way beyond my stratosphere. But I got so much value from it, but it wasn't the right room. But being sometimes the dumbest person in the right room is so important, and it really stretches you. And then it goes back to that first thing of not being afraid to ask the stupid question, not being, ask can I have some help with this? I'm very good at that. I don't mind going to a seminar and being the guy in the front row with my hand up multiple times. I'm here for me. It's probably going to give value to you. And I remember when I studied with a guy called Dr. Phil Richards for about 3-4 years, very, very astute guy. And he was very well read. And I would ask question after question. And sometimes people would come up to me in the seminars and say, thank you so much for asking that question. The response he gave you actually solidified it for me. And I was like, no problem. Because being in the right room, but being sometimes the dumbest person in the room. And I was the dumbest person in that room. I would ask so many questions, like seemingly dumb. But I remember all the information to this day because I asked the uncomfortable questions. So being around people that are going to inspire you to do bigger things is going to help you. And the other point there is that being around people in forward momentum, because it's almost like a stream that you get caught up in it. I have clients that challenge each other to how many reach outs to potential clients they can do. They can see someone else making moves, so it drives them to do the same. And there's a famous kind of saying in psychology is that when you are looking to change your behavior, go to a place or create an environment where that behavior is the norm. That's why gyms work, because, for example, my gym, my body transformation gym, the desired behavior of someone who wanted to lose weight, of talking about good food, not drinking, training every day, being positive, listening to great music. Well, I thought it was great music. Being coached. That's the normal behavior there. That's like every day it's the same. Whereas someone who is going out on a Friday, drinking, Saturday drinking, Sunday drinking, getting through the week, going to the pub on a Friday, Saturday, Monday, the desired behavior there is alcohol. So if you, it's like being a narcissist in a Max factory. It's the wrong place for you to be. So what you want to think about that is like, where are the people who have got my desired behavior? And sometimes it is looking for that. I have doubters in my immediate family or workplace. Now, this is a big one for so many people, is that their partner, their parents, their friends, their online community, whoever it may be, their boss, has created a narrative that they've believed themselves. They doubt you, and because you've got doubt, that triggers the hell out of you. Now, I said that in a specific way for a reason, is that albeit they've got a story about you and they doubt you, that doesn't have to be your own. If you fully backed yourself, someone doubting you wouldn't trigger you. Like, I am all in on my own success. Someone doubting me I can see it's just all of their material, it's all their stuff. So what happens is, if someone doubting you triggers you, it's because you haven't fully bought into your own success. That's my opinion. And so what you've got to be able to do is create it where you sell yourself on your own success. You're already so bought into your own journey and so bought into your own success that you are, you are unfuckwithable. That's kind of the expression for that. No one can knock you off your perch. It's just so bought in. And so when you do get knocked back, you're straight back up. And that's, that happened to me and for me so many times. But I'm so bought in that I will be successful. So I already am successful. I'm reading The Gap and the Gain at the moment. And it's like, I'm already successful. And because I believe that, I will continue to be successful. So that's the way we want to be thinking about it. But this is also a boundaries and environment issue. So you might have haters and doubters, but you've got to learn that it's your reaction to them, which is what you can control and very little else. So I can control my reaction to them. I can't control anything else. Byron Katie famously said, other people's opinion of you are none of your business. And what this means is that I can fully control the interpretation of my own reaction, but I can't control what they say. They can say whatever they want. This for something that's their free will. What I can't control is that. What I can control, how I react to them, how much time I spend with them, what I say about them in return, how frequently I see them, all that sort of stuff I can control. So what we want to make sure is that those people who are not filling us up, we limit the time, the intensity, the frequency, all the things that will maybe change our relationship with them. So changing, like this could be a total, right, okay, that person's out of my life. It could be like a whole, weeding out that kind of person. Or it can just be a hard conversation. Sometimes a lot of people have never stood up for themselves. They've never said, hey, by the way, you saying those things really doesn't help me, because they just believe that they have to be nice and liked. So it's actually putting a boundary in place. And part of a lot of the programs I've ever taught on, I've taught people how to do this process, really have those hard conversations. And if that's something you struggle with, standing up for yourself, reach out, because I've actually got a micro boundaries course, because that's a really helpful way to start learning about boundaries, is like what's okay and what's not okay. Okay. And the last two. So we've got, I have somewhere to go to get clear. Now, going and getting clear can be the space of therapy. It can be coaching. It can be going speaking openly, venting, somewhere that's safe for you to show up, imperfect, vulnerable, not with your shit together. Go and get clear. Just go and be somewhere that's going to inspire you, but also remove your stress. Getting clear for you as a leader is so important, because it's so important for you as a leader, because if you're clear, you're going to breathe clarity into your organization. If you're muddled and stressed and angry and rageful, that's what's going to get breathed into your organization. So what you need is a safe space to talk, whether that's with a coach one-to-one, whether it's a therapist, where it's somewhere you can speak free of judgment, and you can say anything you like. And that is so, so helpful. Therapy is a really great place to practice this, but so can be a mastermind. It's like, I've created masterminds where people have said, hey, by the way, listen, this is what's going on in my relationship at the moment, or I'm borderline about to get divorced, or my partner's about to leave me. And all that's happened in that time, and this was specifically men in this mastermind, is men just said, hey, I see you, that must be really difficult. They validate you. And for men, that is so needed. Like, so many guys don't get that. They don't get that validation. They can't speak that openly. They can't cry. It's seen as weak. And they get so angry and resentful and rageful because they don't have those spaces. And I really, really believe that that's such an important psychological aid for a man in a leadership position, having a space where he can go and talk openly about his struggles. A lot of my clients do it in the space of coaching. And it's just about venting, getting it out there. And then once they've done it and felt those feelings, it's then moving into strategy to move forward. So getting clear means knowing which actions to take as well. So the support is actually helping you, like supporting you in choosing the right actions for your life. And some people come into coaching with, do I have kids? Do I go and take this job? Do I go self-employed? And having a place to talk about that and be a bit messy about it and not really know the answer and have someone who's professional challenge your thinking is so important. It's so important because that is one of those places that we don't commonly get. And this is why people enjoy the experience of being coached so much, is having that place to have a feedback loop, create some actions, be able to talk openly. And that's why it drives performance so much. So having a space to get clear is so important for you as a high performer. And the final one on the scorecard, we're going to talk about, is have a strong accountability system. And we've talked about this on previous podcasts, is having a place where you make a commitment and go and keep a commitment. So accountability in my world is you make a commitment and then you share about keeping that commitment. Accountability isn't something that's given to you, it's something that you create yourself. But most coaches, and this is my experience of most inexperienced coaches, they take accountability away from the client. Now, if you look at the fitness world now, especially going online, they're like, oh, you'll get 2 check-ins a week, or I'll check in with you every day, or I'll follow you up. And albeit that will get someone results and it will get the momentum, but once that goes away, one of my concerns is a lot of clients revert back to their previous way of behaving because they don't have that other person externally driving them. We want to create autonomous people. So the problem with taking someone's accountability away is that you then become essential in the life. And what we want to be able to do as coaches is help people become self-driven, self-motivated. They don't need an external driver in order to get results. And that was something I was really, really passionate about, still am, is helping people become self-led. So if you've got a team, if you're a leader, the best thing that you can instill in your team is this self-led culture. And I think that's so important. And when you've got a self-led team, your job or your role as a manager gets 10 times easier and you can focus on other things. But what you're actually doing in this part is actually creating responsibility instead of accountability. So the main difference between accountability and responsibility lies in the think about this, like responsibility is what you're supposed to do, like your job or your role and the chores that you have to do. That's responsible. I'm responsible to do that. Accountability is being responsible for what happens when you do that. So it's being accountable for the results. So if I'm in a personal training agreement, I'm responsible to go and train, and then I share my results of having done my training with my trainer, and then I'm accountable for doing that. And that's what creates the accountability system. And so responsibility is about the task. Accountability is about owning the results and sharing the results. So that's a real important distinction, I think, especially when it comes to having an accountability system. What people often think as an accountability system is someone to follow them up and manage them and parent them. And that is not the right way to do it. They're both created by you. So that is how you create 10x support. Now, this is the final podcast in the first 5 podcasts of my new podcast, the Coaching with Ben podcast. And we've gone through 5 things that will help you, the 5 steps you can take to go 10x. Now, the next steps you can take, and these are really, really helpful things to do for you after listening to these podcasts. A, you can go and take action on some of the things you've heard. B, you can book in for the first step to go 10x workshop. I did call it the 5 steps, but we only go on the first step. We help you create a vision on that call, and I actually coach you into action. Okay. The third thing is you could take the scorecard. The scorecard is going to take you 2 minutes. It will drastically help you see which of the 5 things that we've talked about over the last 5 podcasts are the most important places for you to place your energy and attention. And then finally, if you're interested, I have a mastermind where people just like you have created a vision and then they're taking action to make that happen. If you're interested in that, just find me on a social channel and write the word mastermind to me and I'll send you the information. Thank you so much for being with me on this journey. And this podcast is about to grow even more. As I've been building this podcast over the last 5 episodes, I've been reaching out to people in my network and people outside my network who are experts in vision, obstacles, transformation, support, accountability. So I will be interviewing guests on the podcast about those 5 areas. And you can look forward to listening to interviews with some of the best people in their field. And what I want to give you is a real clear grounding in all these different arenas. So when it comes for you going 10x in your work and your life, it gets way easier, it's way more straightforward, and you can experience the same results that I'm experiencing. Thank you so much for listening to these episodes. I'm so grateful. If you could do me a huge favor, if these have been valuable to you, share them with somebody. Share them with someone who it would be valuable to listen to this podcast and say, hey, by the way, this is really helpful. This helped me with this. I think it would help you too. The other thing is, if you rated this podcast on iTunes, it would help me so much, because the better the ratings I get as I'm creating the podcast, the more or the higher level guests I'll be able to attract. And also, there might be someone else like you struggling with what you're struggling with right now who could listen to this podcast, and it would help them enormously. And that's the best thing we can possibly do as humans, is help other people. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Take care. See you on the next episode.